Let's get out to our Steve Leisman, who has an exclusive interview for us with Eric Rosengren. Steve.
Well, thanks very much. We are joined by Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren. President Rosengren, thank you for joining us. Let's get right to this issue, which Wilfa introduced, this idea that could the Fed be tapering or announce a taper as soon as September? Is it something you support? Is there enough support on the committee?
Well, as you know, the criteria for tapering is substantial further progress relative to where we were at the end of last year. I think my own view is that on the inflation side, we certainly have met that objective. We've been running well over our 2% inflation target. While I do think most of it is going to be transitory, I think there'll be enough persistence that we'll continue to see inflation a little bit above 2% next year as well. So I have no concerns about us hitting the inflation part of our mandate. On the labor part of our mandate, we've just come off a very strong labor market report. We've had 2 months in a row where we've created more than 900,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate dropped by 0.5% to 5.4%. If we get another strong labor market report, I think that I would be supportive of announcing in September that we are ready to start the taper program. I do think that another consideration, in addition to meeting the substantial further progress, is my own view is that the purchase program is not nearly as effective now as it was as we were coming out of the financial crisis. And that is primarily because we're experiencing shortage of supplies of both labor and materials. And as a result, the interest-sensitive sector is not adding much to employment. What we're really seeing is the employment is coming from opening up of the economy. So it's in areas like restaurants, bars, hotels, and retail. And we're not seeing that much in construction, motor vehicle, and parts. So I think it's both less effective right now, and I think we are likely to meet by the September meeting the criteria that we laid out. The obvious question mark remains whether problems with the Delta variant starts to slow down the labor market. But so far we haven't seen that. I'm hopeful that we will get another strong employment report.
I want to come back to the Delta variant, but let me just ask you to lay out your vision of how the taper actually works. Do you begin as soon as October after announcement in September, and how many months do you go for?
The committee hasn't decided the exact framework. I've said that I think it's appropriate to start in the fall. That could be October, November. I certainly wouldn't want to wait any later than December. My preference would be probably for sooner rather than later. But, any time this fall, I think, would be appropriate. In terms of when the taper program would end, my own personal preference would be that we do equal amounts of reduction of both the mortgage-backed securities and Treasury securities, and that we finish off the program mid-year next year. That just reflects the fact that if it's not being particularly effective, there's no reason to drag it out as long as the economy continues to progress as we expect.
What comes after that? I mean, you made a series of emergency rate cuts. How deliberate will you be? When do you believe it will be time to start thinking about raising interest rates, and what would be the criteria for that in your mind?
I mean, the criteria for raising rates is different than the criteria for tapering the asset purchase program. The criteria for starting to raise rates is that we see outcomes that are consistent with a sustainable inflation rate, a little bit above 2%, 2% or a little bit above, and that we're at full employment. So 5.4% is not full employment, and I do expect that we're likely to see inflation over 2% next year, but we haven't seen those outcomes, so we'll have to see if that actually, those forecasts turn out to be true.